Good morning, everybody. I am Mandy Branham, aka the Joint Venture Queen. Thanks for being here today. Got my blue blockers on because my kids say that I spend too much time in front of the computers. So you today on the show, you know what? Sometimes we live in our own little world. Sometimes we go by the beat of our own drum. I definitely know that's how I kind of live. And if I'm inspired by somebody who goes by the beat of her own drum, she lives in her own little world and she creates her reality because gosh darn it, why won't we? Why shouldn't we? So you're not going to want to miss today's show with Rochelle. Rochelle Laflamme from Epic Alliance. You think, oh, small little town in a flat little province. Well, you know what? Amazing things come from all areas of the world. Please stay tuned if you're looking for a good shot of energy and enthusiasm today and be able to think a little differently than you did before you watched. If you haven't already, like and subscribe on my YouTube page. We're really looking for some followers, and stay tuned for the show. Larry, please, drumroll, bring in the Miss Rochelle. Hi, lady.
Good morning, beautiful.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Where are you?
I'm in Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio. So you have ventured across the border.
I have, been here since January 23rd. Been in the States since January 23rd.
Why don't you tell people, for those that might not know Epic Alliance and the epic journey that you are on, a little bit about who you are and what your mission is?
For sure. So Alyssa and I, my business partner, Alyssa Thompson, back in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, we started our company back at the tail end of 2013. So it's grown from us flipping one house in year one to we ended last year controlling over $130 million worth of residential real estate between Saskatoon and the Battlefords in Saskatchewan. So two markets. And we work with private investors from all over Canada. So we specialize in buying and creating cash flowing opportunities. And I mean, you're the joint venture queen, you know all about cash flow. And for us, when we first learned about real estate investing, we learned that cash flow makes sense. And if you're going to buy a cash flowing rental property or a rental property, it should probably cash flow, AKA at least pay for itself. Right. So for us, we were like, okay, we're in a market. It makes sense. Our backstory is crazy. We've grown from one house to another and then just compounded, but we've more than doubled our portfolio every year since we started our company. And we want to keep doing that. So basically, if we keep on that trajectory over the next 3 years, we'll be controlling $1 billion worth of residential real estate between Canada and the US. So that's the goal. Yeah.
That's the goal. Was it always that way? How did you, when you started out, be able to, they say, you can't bite off more than you can chew, or don't bite off more than you can chew. You have been saying that and believing it. It is of you now. But how did you get from starting out to those kind of lofty goals?
So I've always been motivated by really big, hairy, audacious goals. I'm a very goal-driven person. And I really find that you need to figure out what is your tactic or what motivates you. I find that some people get really down about goals. That's not a great motivator for them. So for me, that's definitely what makes me tick. And people always asked us when we first started the company, like, what's the goal? And we were both electricians full time, right? So we were pretty handy. So we were flipping houses and doing that on the side. But then when our market shifted and we were like, okay, now it's time to go all in kind of thing. And so we were just like, okay, well, we'll take over Saskatoon and then the world. Right. And it just sounded cool. Like we were like, okay, I mean, and it wasn't trying to be egotistical. It was just trying to put out there that there's really no limits. Right. Because I find that a lot of us have self-imposed limits or limits that come from our surroundings. And so what you speak into the universe manifests. And I know that's a little woo-woo for some people, but honestly, that's just how we roll. And, this did not come by accident. We've spent lots of time, energy, money on personal development, business development, real estate investing development, right? But for us, and it's just like surrounding ourselves with the right people. Like Mandy, you're one of my girls, and it's just like hanging out with people that are just not limiting and really limitless. Like, we've got huge wants, but huge desires, but we also have huge work ethics and loads of integrity. And I think that really is a best fit.
You are very in line with big goals. And it's very congruent to how hard you work. The effort in is directly related to the results out. What do you say to somebody who might have lofty goals, but then they also say, but I'd like to be able to do this on a part-time basis, and I'm going to keep my 40-hour-a-week job, or I don't want to use a lot of leverage. I don't like, how do you kind of, describe somebody if their goals don't align with their work ethic, or maybe they're working their butts off, but they don't have big enough goals, so it might not be rewarding enough for them? What are some directional that way?
So for me, I love one-on-one conversations with people, but I know within 5 minutes if those are my people or not. Because if somebody's telling me why they can't do something, or they're focusing on all the obstructions that they have in their world as to why they're not hitting their goals, or, life's really tough, COVID, right? Like, come on. I'm not gonna accept people's excuses, and I don't surround myself with people who spew that kind of language, because again, I can't let that into my subconscious, because our world and our brains, like, there's so much happening, and we're picking up everything that's happening in front of us, to us, around us. So if you're surrounding yourself with negativity or that kind of a vibe, you pick up on that. And I'm like, no, hey, bye. We got to stop this, right?
Yeah.
I'm always going to talk to people about, okay, I understand that that's what's happening. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Right. So if you're going to focus and dwell on the shit, yeah, I'm not here for that. Okay. So I understand stuff happens. That's called life. Welcome to the world. Right. But what are you going to do about it? That's what I want to know. So right now in Canada, we are at over 100 team members, right? We do everything in-house. So we've got all of our own property management, all of our own repair crew. We have an electrical company that we don't only just indenture electricians now, we also indenture carpenters and plumbers as well. And so there's a lot of spin-offs and stuff happening. But at the end of the day, anybody who deals with me directly, they know if you bring a problem to Rochelle, you also need to bring some solutions, because I got no time for that. I'm like, okay, that went wrong. What are my choices? Okay, because if you need me to problem solve it, I'm already here trying to launch a new country, plus dealing with all the investor side back home. Like, I got a lot on my plate. Don't bring me toilet backed up.
You're very, I love, so, and I share this as just an observation. You're very protective of your mental space. And I really like that. 5 minutes, we're not aligning. You're kind of, a Debbie Downer. You're going about all that's wrong. And you put up some security guards to be like, whoa, wait a minute here. I can't have you, penetrating into my mindset. How long did it kind of take for you to be able to acknowledge that? Because I think it's powerful. Some people say, well, Rochelle, so, she just closed me off. We stopped the conversation. And you're like, I bet you I know why. Is because you were trying to lead her, or, take people down that pity party for yourself. So, I mean, how did you create these boundaries and be able to know when somebody should or shouldn't be into your mental space?
Yeah, I think so. For myself, like, we all have our stories of how we were raised in our childhood, right? We all have our either limiting beliefs, or some of the stories are good stories, right? Like for me, for example, I don't get sick. And I always say, and I tell myself a million times a day, I'm like, oh, I just don't get sick. And then lo and behold, I never get sick. Well, is that an accident? No, that's the story, that my body just functions that way because that's the story, right? So we have good stories and we have some bad stories. So one of the good stories that I thankfully was raised with, my mom, I was raised by a single mom. My dad died when I was quite young. And she always used to say, like, you know, because I would get picked on or whatever. It was overweight, braces, big glasses, you know, whatever. And, you know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, these stupid kids, whatever, whatever. And she's like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares about being normal? What's normal anyway? You know, embrace your weirdness, be quirky, be unique, but love that about yourself. And that's not a story that a lot of us grew up with. So I'm very grateful for that. And at the same time, I've never cared about fitting in per se, because I was like, yeah, if you're not my people, I'm good with that. You be good with you. I'll be good with me. I'll do me. You do you. Have a great life, right? I'm not here to be everybody's friend. So I always say, like, you know, and I've realized growing up as I've gone through personal development stuff that, you know, that whole like your vibe attracts your tribe, that kind of stuff, like everything is energy and it's like magnetic. Right. So for me, I'm going to attract the people that are meant to be around me, and I'm going to repel the people that are not meant to be here. And sometimes people like to have their own stories about who they are. And so maybe we might connect on a call because what they said or what they portray seems to be my kind of people. But then when I actually got them on the phone, I realized that's who they want to be. That's not who they are. Right. And so I'm like, you know what, man, like you got to get your act together, because like you are not vibing and living your truth. Like I get that that's where you want to be. You got a lot of work to get there. And so for myself, I'm like, yeah, very, very, very overprotective of my boundaries. And so for some people, they may be like, oh, Rochelle, she's a bitch. Yeah, because you weren't my people. So I probably chewed you up because you were trying to overstep my ironclad boundaries. And, you know, if that's just the way it is, then that's their perception of it. Whatever. You
know what? Larry was like, what are we calling the show today? And I'm like, this is Rochelle's World. Like, welcome to Rochelle's World. I love how you title a lot of your pictures and your quotes on your social media with Rochelle's World. And I was like, that's just a little glimpse into the world that you've created to be able to say, yeah, this is my protective space. We quote you around this house. Like, I think, I know I've told you this before, but change your words, change your story. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about where that came from, because honestly, it has been profound. And it's been said to me in my family. I will say it to my children. I'll say it to Larry. Like, we use it all the time. Where did that come from? Change your words, change your story.
Yeah. So again, like I don't make a lot of this stuff up. A lot of it, I heard it somewhere and I just embrace it and I really roll with it. So, you know, I hashtag it Rochelle's World. I mean, you can hashtag it whatever you want, right? And FYI, I love your graphic. That is like money right there.
That was Larry.
Thank you, Larry. That's priceless. And so at the end of the day, change your words, change your story. For me, I have a lot of people reaching out because, again, whether they want to invest with us or whether they're an aspiring real estate investor or whatnot, I'll take a call with anybody. And I always tell people that. But if you're going to bring me excuses, I'm going to chew you up. Just the way it works, right? And so, you know, I had a call the other day with a 17-year-old wannabe real estate investor. He's got some coaching and he's like, yeah, my coach said I should reach out to you. And I was like, who's your coach? Don't even know who the person is. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, they reached on Facebook. I had a call and, you know, he has the right mindset. And I was actually intrigued and I was asking him questions. I'm like, so your parents aren't into real estate. Like, how did you get into this? And he's like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I was like, oh my God, because for me, that was the gateway drug for myself, right? And I only read that at 28. Had I read that at 17, I would have been retired by 25, no doubt, right? But again, I have lost years to make up for, which is okay because again, had I not had the life experience that I had, you know, everything comes to us in the right time and it is what it is. This is part of the adventure. But at the end of the day, change your words, change your story. I tell that to my team all the time. Like when people are like, oh yeah, it's a really shitty day. I'm like, oh, are you surprised that you're having a shitty day? And then you're feeding into it. So it's even worse. And then more things happen because it's a ripple effect, because you're literally magnetizing the crap. But if you focus on the good, and believe me, I had a day the other day, I woke up and I was like triggered right from day one. And I was like, what is your problem, Rochelle? Settle down. So I made sure that I limited my interaction with people because I knew that I was extra saucy. And like when I'm savage, man, it's brutal. Like I feel bad for anybody who interacts for me because I'm just like, I slay all day. Like I got nothing nice to say. It's like poison, man. I'm a Scorpio by, horoscope. And I sting when I'm in a mood. And so anyway, so I pre-warned my girls that I was talking about. I was like, just so you know, today I'm in a mood. just so you know, it's not personal. It is what it is. So the best part of that day was literally going to sleep and putting my head on the pillow. And you know what? And this was not a day that did not have amazing things. Like I actually had lots of reminders of how blessed I am and how amazing my life is. But I just was just like in a mood. So anyway, long story short, I just kind of had to like figure out what was wrong with me. And honestly, it was because my timeline of me being in the States, I'm not where I wanted to be. And so for me, it kind of came to a head and I was just like, I'm not good with this. So I kind of had to regroup, figure stuff out, put other systems in place. And then the next day was brilliant, right? So now I'm back on my game. But it's just like being aware. And when you're aware of things, you just kind of see behind the veil a little bit. And so for me, like I just had to kind of wake up, realize that it was one of those days. We all have those days, but it was just kind of accepting it and being like, okay, it's just the day. Tomorrow's going to be brilliant, right? And so for me, it comes with the mixture of that, like just kind of, seeing the full picture and then figuring out what you're going to do with it. So what our words are and there's a subconscious script happening all the time. So you have to be very careful about, again, that who you let in your circle. And these people who live on Facebook and these keyboard warriors and stuff, I'm like, go look at your life, right? Your real life, the one that you like actually partake in, not the stuff that's online. Yeah. And it's so interesting to see how many people like, just, there's no substance. And I'm like, no, like I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling, but
yeah, no, I get you. So you had one bad day. Okay. And it kind of reminds me of when I went to Weight Watchers and they would say, if you broke a plate, if you're putting away dishes out of your dishwasher and you broke a plate, would you throw the rest of the plates down? And of course, that's like, no, of course I wouldn't. And they're like, well, then stop worrying about one bad day, one bad week. You woke up, you realized it was a day, and then you ended it. That is awesome. 24 hours, be done. But what is some guidance for somebody who, finds themselves in a funk, finds themselves, and it's been a week, 2 weeks, a month, those people that are like, I've been looking for a house. I've been looking for an investment property for a year. And you're like, really? Like, if I look for a week and I can't find anything, I'm doing a regroup. What else am I supposed to be seeing? Who else am I supposed to be talking to? So, 24 hours, what do you give advice to somebody who has been, or would say, probably not even admit to it, that they're stuck in a funk and they need to be able to get out of that?
So our team, again, it's interesting because I always say, like, anybody who's attracted to our company, to actually like Epic Alliance, to being part of our team as far as working for us, it's kind of like we've created this little oasis, this little place where everybody who didn't fit in other places come and fit in. We're our own little group of weirdos. It's the weirdest thing. And it's amazing though, because we are all so quirky, but we bring the best of who we are and what we do. And that's a skill set we bring to the team, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And, there's that quote, if you judge a fish by how it climbs a tree, then,
it will live its life thinking it's stupid.
Exactly. And so I think that is the problem with the way our world works, is with the typical school system and stuff. Like, I hated school. Not that I was bad at it. I just hated it because it was so like in the box, and I live outside of the box, and it just didn't fit with who I was. And I've been always very entrepreneurial and all that stuff. And they try to beat that out of you in school, right? So for me, I never fit in there. It didn't make sense. And I think that's a lot of the problem, is any of us who are wired to not think like a 9-to-5 worker, we just don't fit the structures of school. And so we spend how much of our life there doing that mundane tasks the same all the time. They're trying to train you how to go out and get a job. It's just not a best fit. So for me, I always say, if you're unhappy or miserable or depressed about where you are in life, it's time to do a deep dive and figure out who you actually are, what you actually want, and then go out and put a game plan to make that happen. So if you're working a job that you hate, figure out what it is you want to do, and then figure out a plan to be able to switch it up, right? And, for lots of real estate investors, you transition into real estate investing. It's not something you're just like, you wake up one day, you're like, I bought a house, time to quit my job, right? No, it's a transition. But I did not work a very high paying job. I was an apprentice electrician making $18 an hour. Quitting my job was easy. Alyssa worked for Saskatoon Light and Power. She made a good paycheck with a pension and benefits, and she was a single mom. So obviously her job was harder to walk away from. Now, again, she eventually did once we were able to support her income. But at the end of the day, she could have stayed there forever because it was comfortable. It paid the bills. It was security, right? And I mean, her parents were livid when she quit, because who quits a pension corporate job working for the Crown, right? That just doesn't happen. So again, be careful who you surround yourself with, because we all are picking up on all that kind of stuff. And if you're going to lead your life based on what other people think you should do or what their opinions of you are, you're dead before you're even out of the gate. It's not.
Yeah, not the people you want to add in. I would love for you to be able to share with the audience your Epic Alliance. Who are you? What do you do? How can people get a hold of you? What is the uniqueness of the model that you have to be able to offer to investors?
For sure. So yeah, at Epic Alliance, what we do is we provide passive investment opportunities to people who are really busy leading their best lives, and they don't want to do any of the things. They don't want to figure out how to go vet a property. They don't want to deal with tenants. They don't want to deal with contractors. They are just so busy leading their best lives that they're like, hey man, I understand that I should be diversifying and I should be investing in real estate. I don't have the time or the want to do it. We're like, hey, hi, here we are, Epic Alliance, right? So we have two different investment opportunities. So the one is called our fund to flip opportunity. That's where people can use their cash, or some people have big home equity line of credits or underperforming registered funds. So we've actually leveraged people's RSPs, TFSAs, LIRAs. Lots of people have pensions and they're like, well, I can't do anything with it. Yeah, you can grow it. You can't take it out right now, but you can grow it. So why don't you work with us making double-digit returns completely passively? Maybe it's a little bit safer than the stock market. You actually get tied to a property, brick and mortar asset, as opposed to a piece of paper for buying some stocks, right? So again, it's just a diversification strategy. Those ones, it's basically, that's how we acquire the houses. We find distressed houses, or we find houses owned by distressed owners. We do a light renovation. That's what we do in our fund to flip program. Then when the property is renovated, we get it rented, and then it turns into a cash flowing asset. We get it reappraised, and that is the inventory that we turn around and sell to our hassle-free landlord owners. Now, our hassle-free landlord owners are somebody who wants to own a cash flowing revenue property, but they don't want to do any of the things. So what they do, it's a 2-year term. So they actually physically put the 20% down, they pay for the closing costs, and they physically get the mortgage. It's their house. But what happens is we actually go into a partnership with them, and we become the guaranteed tenants. So our investors actually earn a 15% annual rate of return on their cash. So it's very different than a lot of other investment models, because it's not every day you hear about a cash flowing opportunity where you know exactly how much you're going to cash flow every single month for 2 years.
Wow. So they just need to qualify for an asset. And let me guess, you walk them through, handhold to be able to make this a seamless process.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, like, you with your joint venture programs, Mandy, you have a different strategy. Again, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. But for us, the value add that we have is we can work with baby investors, or investors with baby funds. So we have a house right now for $100,000. So an investor could put the 20% down, get the mortgage, and for less than $25,000, they can own a cash flowing asset.
Wow. Yeah. Yes, that is definitely a good way for all those people who are like, oh, I don't qualify for much. That would even be super brilliant for somebody who's, oh, the prices around me are too much. And, so I'm just going to wait until people are always saying until prices come down. Don't wait. Go and invest your money, hedge it in real estate. So, real estate in Saskatoon and you live in Ontario, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Go and buy an asset and be able to say that you are invested in real estate at the end of,
Exactly. So for us, I like to work with people where they're at. So even if somebody had a $25,000 RSP, they're like, hey, I'm making nothing at the bank, 1.5% in a GIC. Again, we can get an investor 10% on that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're making double-digit returns, and they're like, I didn't know this existed. I'm like, I know, bane of my existence right now, right? So again, we have an amazing referral program as well. So if anybody introduces someone to us who never heard about us or whatever, then that person ends up investing. We actually pay that referral partner $1,000 for that referral on a closed deal. So that's whether somebody buys a hassle-free landlord house or a fund to flip. And what's amazing is it's not a finder's fee. You actually get tied to that investor for life. And every time they come back and do a new deal, you earn another $1,000. So it's actually another stream of income for some people who like to figure out what our products are and then, keep growing that way. So again,
what are you doing? What are you doing down in the States? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and maybe there is some people that might find that a very unique opportunity.
Yeah, so for me, this has been my pet project since pre-COVID, actually. So it would have been my birthday, November 15th, 2019 to early March, right before COVID happened. I was actually in Florida doing all my market research. And I was looking for markets in the US that mimic our Saskatoon market. Because again, in Saskatoon, we buy for cash flow, not appreciation. The opposite of how a lot of people in Ontario are investing, because there you guys have heavy appreciation, but cash flow is harder to find unless you do a lot of the hands-on stuff. And so for us, I'm just looking for steady markets where we can get the 1% rule on properties and, they'll cash flow and make sense and whatnot. So anyway, so I was there and then COVID happened, held us up for a year, but I'm back. And so now I had identified Cleveland as the best city for us to be launching in because it's a very similar market to Saskatoon. And the realtor we're working with is amazing. And he was already doing this with his other clients, and he was willing to replace us with one of his other clients, other way, get rid of us, one of his other clients to take us on, which was a blessing. And so that's what we're working on right now. And then my goal is actually to get up and running in multiple markets throughout the US so that we can, because real estate is competitive everywhere right now. It's hard to find real estate anywhere. Same thing. Saskatoon, hard to find properties. Ontario, hard to find properties. US, hard to find properties. Again, a lot of people, there's lots of different factors, but again, it's basic economics. Money and financing is really cheap right now. A lot of people are, hedging their bets to get out of the stock market because it's at an all-time high. And so they're wanting to switch things up. So a lot of money is coming into real estate. So of course, supply and demand. Some people with COVID are afraid of listing. So there's less listings, all the things, like perfect storm. But for me, I am looking to open up multiple different markets so that our US investors, and this is why we're here, we're trying to have US investors who can turn around and invest in our fund to flip and hassle-free landlord investments in the States. And so again, it's just going to get us growing faster. So right now in Canada, we buy a house a day with our investors. And so that's what I'm looking to do and duplicate in the States so that we can be growing the portfolio that much faster to get to that $1 billion mark. And that's the other thing I think that's really fun about what we do is our hashtag is join us on our journey to $1 billion. So we always say, if you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, get on the epic train. And at the end of the day, some people are like, I don't get it. Like lots of people have $1 billion worth of real estate. I'm like, yeah, but most people, I like, as far as I know, and I've researched a lot, nobody has it with just residential. So fourplexes or less, guys, no multifamily. It's a lot easier to go pay for $1 million property at a time than it is to go buy a $100,000 house at a time. Right?
Yep. Absolutely. Or commercial, or they have land, or they have whatever. Like, small residential is. I can't say that I know anybody. I remember 2015. I was ready to leave my job, early 16, and Warren Buffett came on to do his year in review or look ahead to the year. And he said, if I could, I would buy 300 single family homes. No, maybe it was like 3,000. Probably makes more sense. Probably by 3,000. He's like, but that's just ridiculous. He said, that's just, too hard, whatever. And I recorded it on my phone, this little picture, this little video, so I could take it home to Larry and say, look at Warren Buffett is saying, other than it taking a lot of time, buy small little single family homes. Mm-hmm. So you are doing what Warren Buffett said to do that would be, almost impossible because it was going to be very time consuming, and you're doing it.
Yeah, well, and it is time consuming, but that's why you set up the teams and the systems to be able to keep doing it. And that's what's going to be very different with how we build out the States versus Canada. In Canada, we control all the things. In the States, I'm looking to partner with different people we're going to hire everything out. We're hiring out the property management, the maintenance, repairers, contractors, all that stuff. And so it's just setting up the system so we'll be able to expand that much faster. Because let's be real, I can't be flying back and forth looking at properties all over the different markets. It's just not going to make sense. So
no. So what came first, the properties or the systems, as you continue to every year double your portfolio? Did the systems come first and then you just, oh, that's perfect, I now have the properties? Or did you go, holy shit, we have this many properties, now we need to increase the ability of our systems to handle this amount of volume?
yeah, I wish those systems would have come first because that would have made life way easier. But no, unfortunately, honestly, like, it just kind of has grown. It's just got turned into a beast. So for us, and it's interesting too, because even now, like, the ebbs and flows, like, we'll have 1 week where I'm up, $2 million of investor funds that I got to go deploy. And our commitment to our investors is when an investor brings us new funds, we can get it on a deal working within 5 to 10 business days. Because we don't want your money sitting around doing nothing. That's not good for anybody, right? And so then when an investor gets paid back their fund to flip funds from selling a hassle-free, we give them a new opportunity. So within 2 days, they're back on another deal. Let's get your money working, right? It's like a steady income train. And at the end of the day, that's how we have to kind of work our stuff. So we'll go literally from being up $2 million. I deploy it all within that 5 to 10 business days. And then all of a sudden we get a bunch of houses. Now I'm short 2 million. Like, it's just that ebbs and flows, right? I just, it's just part of the day. I think that it was not this week, maybe it was this week, I'm not sure. There was a 2-week period where between the hassle-free landlord buybacks, because when we have an investor who is like, hey, I'm going to switch up my portfolio, I want to sell my houses back, we buy them back. We're guaranteed buyers, right? No big deal. Now, we had one investor sell his 4 houses back. And then we had some refinances we had to do, because sometimes we have investors who bring back their annual contributions or more money. And so we have to reconfigure their portfolio to get theirs maxed. Anyway, whatever. So within 2 weeks, so 10 business days, we had 16 real estate transactions. It was insane. It was like $3.6 million worth of real estate funds that I had to juggle. And, it's just another day. Like, it's just, it's just what happens.
My biggest takeaway and my biggest share to people that are watching, there's a lot of people like, well, I need to get my systems in place before I buy. And, we've got a property management company up in our new city, and the amount of investors that are calling saying, I'm going to come to Sudbury. So I would like to have a property management company ready to go. And it's like, that's cool. But then I've prompted my property manager to say the next question: when you come up here to look at assets, then maybe call us. But in the meantime, you're making all these phone calls, talking to contractors and whatnot, and you've never even stepped foot in one of the assets. Yeah. So, like, people are almost putting the wrong cart ahead of the horse, or it's not the wrong thing to be able to do, but let's just be clear, you can't move forward if you don't have an asset. So the systems in place, I want them to kind of feel that pain that you guys have felt as you grow, be able to say, oh shit, now I need a bookkeeper because I thought I could do it on my own, or, oh, I've been doing my taxes on my own. Yeah, try that with 5 rental properties. Not going to be the most tax efficient way for you to be able to do your own taxes.
Yeah. And the other side of that too is, I always tell people, I'm like, it's that I think a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis. And I'm like, just go do something. Even if you do it wrong, you're going to learn a damn good lesson, right?
But Allie just said, I'm glad to hear this. I often feel like I'm building a plane while flying.
Right? Yeah, 100%. But again, look at your success, Allie. Like, it's just that, right? So for me, at the end of the day, like, even this US stuff, like this week, actually, and this was part of my anger day, my crazy day. I was supposed to be I was supposed to have already left Cleveland, but we haven't not bought the 2 houses that we're supposed to be buying. Like, they're going to be the first ones that we transact on. So again, things are different in the States. So for us, there's a title company, whereas in Canada, we have lawyers. And then there's I got to get the lawyer to create the private notes. And here we have, the paperwork's just way different. So again, once we have the first transactions done, it's wash, rinse, and repeat. But God, is it painful doing the first ones to make sure everything is, all T's crossed, all I's dotted, all that stuff. Like, it's brutal. And I am not a patient person. That's probably my biggest weakness, is I have no patience, right? So again, I hire that out. But some things you just have to do yourself, right? So anyway, long story short, it's been exhausting. And for myself, I'm like, okay, so again, in a perfect world, I'd love to have investors lined up so that I could go find the deal. So we did raise some capital in Canada, and that's how we're buying houses here to get going until we have US investors coming on board to invest with us here. But it's interesting because I have 3 pre-approvals for US investors for US properties, and I have no properties yet. So it's kind of that catch-22, right? Thankfully, I've, full disclosure, I'm like, hey man, you're going to be like the first investor in the US. How exciting. But we don't have, investor properties yet, but they're coming, right? So again, it's just being fully transparent. It'd be different if I was just going out and telling people like, yeah, we have all these properties. And then all of a sudden I sent them to the mortgage broker. They were like, I'm ready. And then I didn't have anything, right? Yeah. So full disclosure, they know what's happening, and fully transparent. That's a huge thing for me, is just say it like it is. And don't lie. Like, there's no integrity in that. You're going to end up getting in trouble. So just, be fully transparent and authentic with people, because there's nothing worse than blowing smoke. Like, nobody needs that. Nobody wants
You don't blow smoke, my friend.
No, I give the honest, brutal truth sometimes. Yep.
That's all right. You know what? I actually believe that people need to hear it. It's refreshing to hear the way that you share your things. It comes from a place of like authenticity, because that's truly who you are. You do live in Rochelle's world, and you are authentic to your world. And that is why I wanted to be able to have you on the show again today, for everybody to have a little boost of just a different way to think and act. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. And then again, if people want to reach out on Facebook or Instagram, I'm Rochelle Flam, or you can follow us on Epic Alliance Inc. With that as well, I always tell people, like, don't come for me to argue on any of my posts if you follow me in Rochelle's World, because I don't need you to agree with me. You have your own page for that shit. But do not come for me on my page, because I will shred you.
And that's not a threat. That's just the truth.
Yeah, it's just the reality. But it's been a blast. I'm so glad we got to catch up. And, if people got something out of this, cool. If not, sorry about it.
And if not, you're not our people. You're not our people. And that's okay too. That's okay too. Rochelle, thank you so very much. Don't leave the studio, because I want to chat with you after the show. But thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope that you now have a little bit of Rochelle within you. Protect yourself. Merely make sure that you are being your authentic self, that you're driven, and you're not letting anybody else's limiting beliefs get into your mind. So stay tuned. I'll see you next week, same time. Like my YouTube channel. I will see you for another episode of The Full-Time Investor. I'm Mandy Branham. Have a good week.